Earlier this year, I reviewed the film All You Need Is Cash, a mockumentary centering around the Rutles, a band that parodies the Beatles conceived by Neil Innes and Eric Idle. But did you know that, a quarter of a century later, a sequel emerged? Can't Buy Me Lunch is the second film in the Rutles franchise, released in 2003 following their second album Archaeology in 1996, a parody of the Beatles anthology. Tragically, a significant event occurred in real life between the release of the two films, the murder of the Beatles' John Lennon in 1980. Based on what I've seen, this film doesn't appear to be remembered as fondly as the original film, and I will try to get to the bottom of why in this review. Does the Rutles 2 live up to the lunchtime legendariness of its predecessor? Let's find out. Without further ado, on with the review.
Polos is life, 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 sleep all night and then Polos is life.
Before we begin, I just want to remind you all to subscribe if you like my content, as only 18% of you guys watching are subscribed. Anyways, let's get back to the review. The film opens with a montage of clips from the first film, which, as an audience member, you should get used to as the film progresses. We have a reappearance from Eric Idle as the narrator from the original mockumentary, who introduces the new mockumentary that we're watching.
Today, I'm here in Hollywood to take a look back at the Rutles.
I will note that this film does feel decidedly less British, which I suppose is expected given the new Hollywood setting. We have a repeat of the camera crew going too fast for the narrator to catch up, which is a nice callback, I'd say. Following the opening credits, we learn the narrator's name, Melvin Hall. The cameraman ends up chasing an unsuspecting woman into her house, and when Melvin finally catches up to them, she notices the intruders and involves the police. I'm not really sure how she didn't hear the footsteps behind her given that the cameraman is carrying equipment on top of running, but whatever, suspension of disbelief and all. We go over the beginning of the Rutles story as established in the first film, along with some celebrity cameos including Bonnie Raitt, James Taylor, Jewel, Dave Stewart, Gary Shandling, Clint Black, and Billy Connolly, reaffirming that the Rutles were big stars back in the day while Am I in Love plays. Once again, if you think that was a big list of celebrity guests compared to the first film, you'd better get used to it.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Since the other three Rutles don't appear in the film outside of archive footage, they had to make up the runtime somehow. Thankfully, we also get an appearance from my beloved David Bowie, as well as a line from Steve Martin that made me chuckle.
Before I heard the Rutles, I wanted to be a musician.
And afterwards?
I didn't anymore.
This bit really goes on for quite a while, which admittedly did get on my nerves. In All You Need Is Cash, the interviews with celebrities were shorter and were broken up with longer segments establishing the wider Rutles narrative, which I think served as a much stronger method of storytelling. Fortunately, we see Melvin Hall again, who is standing in front of the New York Plaza, much like he did in All You Need Is Cash. We actually see some unused archive footage of Bill Murray the K announcing the Rutles' arrival at Kennedy Airport.
They've just flown in, they've landed, they're in, Rutles Day has arrived.
We've Arrived is actually a song from Archaeology, which Idle actually didn't participate in. It's interesting to see more of Bill Murray the K as, of course, each character that wasn't a Ruttle only got a limited airtime during All You Need Is Cash, considering its storytelling technique. It's a cool way to add more detail to the world that the band lived in, along with the people surrounding them. The addition of the title The Fifth Ruttle is actually pretty funny considering that, in real life, several people have been given the title, with it apparently starting as a joke by Bill Murray's real-life counterpart, Murray the K. Various people go on about how much they fancied the Rutles, and we get a very dubious quote from Bonnie Raitt that could be interpreted either way.
Liked him the best because he, I loved the way he played, I loved his length.
Excuse me?
His length.
We also get a rather mean line from Gary Shandling, which, granted, I have heard before in other pieces of media.
Oh my God, Barry. Not a good-looking man, and yet the women were screaming.
Sounded like you said you were in love with Ringo. I don't think so.
Melvin then informs us of various strange aspects of Ron Nasty's childhood, namely that his father was a ventriloquist and that he blew up his school as a 6-year-old. Carrie Fisher comes to Ron's defense, calling such an act high spirits. He's just a silly, goofy guy after all. In a similar vein to Spinal Tap, the Rutles went through several names before settling on the one we know them by. The Silver Rutles, the Ruts, the Tulls, the Sluts, and Alma Cogan. I think Spinal Tap did a better job of this gag, to be honest. After filming in the wrong location several times, Melvin announces that the Rutles first started playing in Hamburg, not unlike the Beatles in 1960. Here, the Rutles discovered leather, amphetamines, and shagging. It would not shock me if this were also the case for their actual equivalents. An actress whose work I'm a big fan of, Catherine O'Hara, appears as Astro Glide, the photographer who gave the Rutles their mop-top haircuts and put them in tight leather trousers. I suppose it is rather neat to get an origin story for the tight trousers bit. Robin Williams, of all people, then stars as a German rockologist called Hans, who studied the Rutles after their performance in Hamburg.
Oh, the Fräuleins were crazy for them, yelling at them, Ich liebe dich, which sounds like I want dick. But no, it means I love you, I love you.
Not gonna lie, this segment really looks like it was filmed with Robin Williams and Eric Idle in different locations, with the footage then being spliced together later. There isn't anything inherently wrong with this, and if this was the case, I just wish they had tried to make it less obvious, as it did ruin my immersion a bit. If this wasn't the case, then I don't really know what's going on with the visuals here. Lady Beth Mouse Padler, wife of the British ambassador, who is also portrayed by Eric Idle in drag, gives an interview about how she couldn't understand the Rutles' accents when she met them, and that the evening went terribly.
Came in very late, very drunk, staggered around, shagged the staff and left. The Rutles? No, the ambassador.
Next is an awfully transposed reenactment of a couple of girls jumping from a helicopter into the Rutles' pool in Benedict Canyon. It's definitely shoddily done on purpose for comedic effect, but still, it's so cheesy. The mic is then taken over by Melvin's son, played by Jimmy Fallon, who I'm admittedly not the biggest fan of. They squabble over the mic, and it just reminds me of that BBC interview where the interviewee's son walked into the room for some reason.
Get out, you Jackie swine! What was it?
Stay out of my office! I want to fucking hell! Fuck off, you little twat! Sorry.
One of the running gags in this film is that Melvin keeps going to the wrong places to conduct interviews, and he eventually ends up in New York to interview Jennifer Lopez, who is actually played by Mariella Comatini. This made me cringe pretty hard. Given that weird film The Real Lopez released recently, no, I haven't seen it. Next, we get one of the more endearing and memorable jokes from this film. The Rutles released an innovative record shaped like a triangle, aptly titled The Triangular Album. Sadly, it didn't do so well as it wasn't very functional due to its shape, and became a hazard thanks to its audience drinking too much tea. The next topic to be tackled is the Rutles entering the film industry, with the production companies that released said films having rather questionable names. Not based on any specific companies, I'm sure. Reflecting real life again, the Rutles play live for the last time in San Francisco's Candlestick Park, before re-emerging with a strange, new, tea-influenced image, releasing Sergeant Rutter's Darts Club Band. Naturally, a load of conspiracy theories about subliminal messaging follow, and a quote from Conan O'Brien probably does hint at the truth of how a lot of people came to these conclusions at the time.
When we were, kids, we all played back Sergeant Rutter and play back Dark Side of the Sun at the same time while you're watching The Wizard of Oz, and while you're slightly high, and it's amazing how it all syncs up.
In all seriousness, this kind of phenomenon is known as auditory pareidolia. Now, I'm not sure if this counts as retconning, but Stig finds that the meaning of life is curry when he meets with Arthur Sultan, whereas before he was just referred to as a Surrey mystic. I guess it's just adding some more detail, besides curry is banging. We do get some actual retconning, where Leggy Mountbatten leaves the Rutles to manage other groups, as opposed to taking up a teaching post in Australia. We also hear of a more sinister side to Mountbatten, who is implied to be somewhat predatory. Finally, we touch on the Rutles separating, where we get one of my favourite lines from this film via Tom Hanks.
That in the end, the lunch you make is equal to the lunch you take.
This, of course, is a reference to a line from the Beatles song, The End.
And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make.
This part of the finale is essentially a retelling of the previous finale, except we get a little more archive footage, where the Rutles' rooftop performance is so bad that they're arrested. I'm not really sure what crime they've committed, but it sounds about right. To conclude, everyone being interviewed talks about how the Rutles changed the cultural landscape, before complaining about wanting to end the interview. Again, that checks out. The final minute or so of the film is just a blooper reel of all of the celebrities bursting out laughing while trying to deliver their lines, and it's nice to see that those involved were having a fun time while Can't Buy Me Lunch was being made. So, what did I think of Can't Buy Me Lunch overall? I can't deny that I was pretty disappointed by this follow-up to All You Need Is Cash. Parody music had been established for quite a while before the Rutles came onto the scene, but the way that the band originally went about it seems like such a novel idea. Given that this is a sequel, I can't really say the same about this film. It didn't even do anything new or inventive with the way the material was presented. Because of that, this film just comes across as unnecessary. The film leans on interviews with the celebrities a lot more than it should in my opinion, along with relying very heavily on archive footage from All You Need Is Cash. The amount of times that certain songs repeat is lazy at best and irritating at worst. This makes it come across like Can't Buy Me Lunch is trying to bank on nostalgia, even if that wasn't Idol's intention when making this. Upon reading reviews of Can't Buy Me Lunch, the audience consensus seems mixed at best. Its audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is 34%, and it doesn't have a critic score, nor any consensus at the time of making this video. Its reviews on Rotten Tomatoes don't seem super positive generally either. The original was a classic. This one, not so much. Nearly every joke is taken directly from the first. It'd honestly be better to watch the first one twice in a row than see this once. This is called milking a great idea for a bit of extra cash. Silly Eric. Although there are some earlier, more positive reviews, such as, "It's alright. I love the O'Brien and Bowie interviews. Not as funny as the original. Some funny parts and good songs though." Things do seem much more positive on Letterboxd, however, with the film being given a generous 3.1 stars out of 5 at the time of this video's production. Here are some reviews rated from lowest to highest. Here's something I never thought I'd say. Jimmy Fallon is the only funny part. Robin Williams really could make me laugh saying absolutely anything. Stick around until after the credits for a fantastic reel. Barry Whom hits the griddy? Yes he does apparently. There was actually a Rutles reunion, bar Dirk, called The Rutles Together Again in 1996 to go along with the release of Archaeology, which was also discussed on CNN.
Music that was to remain buried for 1,000 years. Now, thanks to the persistence of one record producer, 3 members of the group have gotten back together.
I was able to get this footage thanks to a YouTube channel called the Rutles Wiki, whose link I have provided in the description of this video. Please go check out their uploads if you're interested in Rutles content. Ultimately, the question remains, how do I really feel about Can't Buy Me Lunch? In summary, it's just not very interesting in my opinion. A lot of the jokes tend to drag on for far too long, and if you've seen All You Need Is Cash, it can feel tedious, as much of the content simply repeats parts of that film. While the celebrities being interviewed do come across as good sports and have a few funny lines, the previously unused archive footage from All You Need Is Cash is definitely the strongest part of this sequel. Unfortunately, Without the other members of the Rutles, there isn't much else that Idol could have added. If you're a die-hard Rutle maniac, watching this may be worth it thanks to the formerly undisclosed content, but, regrettably, I'd class Can't Buy Me Lunch is pretty forgettable. Well, that's all for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.
The blue and green ones are my favorite kind, but I'll eat the colored ones from time to time. Cause Polos is life, 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 Polos is life. Sleep all night.